I think they should too.
Hello, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I am your host, Brendan Traynor, and our co-host here is Leland Faegre. And I just want you to remember that diversity is our strength.
It sure is. Thanks for reminding me.
Well, what did you think?
Because I'd forget it if you didn't remind me.
What did you think of the particularly non-diverse debates? Did you watch them at all?
All those white people up there?
Yeah.
I did, actually. It came crashing down on me about 5:15. I was on Tucker and then realized that I was missing the front end of the debate, so I switched over there. And it was entertaining.
Yes,
it was hand-to-hand combat if I ever saw it.
It was a continuation of the Nevada debate. I mean, the knives were really out. They were, screaming, raising their hands.
That was the thing about the hand raising.
Yes.
These are people that are running for president of the United States, and they're raising their hands.
Like a school kid. I know,
really,
please call me, please, please, please.
And I noticed at one point, and I think it was one of the first real, cat-like fights that they got in. And it seemed to me as though, as I recall the image in my mind, all of their hands were up except for one candidate.
Who was that?
Take a guess.
Bloomberg?
Biden.
Okay. He forgot where he was.
Yeah, and it's news to him apparently that 150,000 people have been killed, or 150 million have been killed by guns over the past year, according to him in that debate. Did you see that? It's just one of those
out of 350 Americans.
Whiplash listening to that thing. Where is he?
They're all in Coco Land.
Yeah, that's for sure. But that Biden guy, he is something else. I don't know. I think he might be medicated. There might be a psychotropic running through his system.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, again, this week he forgot he thought he was running for senator in his big speech.
And he didn't catch himself. It'd be one thing to say it. And
yeah, I know. But he didn't catch himself.
He didn't
catch. And, God love him, as he would say.
Yes.
But here's the deal.
Yeah, right.
He ain't got what it takes. But he might win South Carolina.
Actually, I see a story on Drudge this morning that he could win pretty big in South Carolina.
Okay.
By recent numbers. And if that's the case, I really don't know how that plays out in the scheme of things, because he has no momentum on Super Tuesday. Mm-hmm. He has no campaign.
It's only a few days between South Carolina and Super Tuesday.
Yeah, and he has no campaign gunner. He's not even running ads in those states, as I understand it. Mm-hmm. So he has no money.
They did say, I did hear today that they've gotten a big uptick in donations. How big, I don't know.
Well, the Clyburn endorsement this morning, which was expected, so it's not as though it comes as a surprise to anyone. It would have been a surprise if he didn't endorse.
Right.
But apparently there's no money there, although obviously it could come with some money at some point.
Yes. And, he's met with every leader in the world over his career, and vice president, and he's gotten every single bill through that, that the Democrats like. He's the one that got it through.
Without him, who knows where we'd be.
And, there's a couple other takeaways I had from it. One thing was they asked a question of what is the thing that people think about you that's the most wrong? And Amy Klobuchar said that I'm, what did she say? That I'm boring. Oh, yeah. People think I'm boring.
Right.
Yeah, as if, Amy, you know what? It's true.
It was given. It was a given. I've never thought of her as being anything else but boring.
Yes.
There's something about her delivery, the speech, the way her dialogue, temple or whatever, however that can be described. And who else has it is Collins from Maine. She's the same way.
Oh, okay.
But,
her
delivery is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. It's kind of, I don't know, knitting circle,
Yeah,
maybe is a good way to put it. Or?
Right, it's geriatric like, and so I don't know of what she thought we didn't notice about it.
Here's another couple of things. Bloomberg says over and over again that he believes in science, but the science he believes in is not the real science.
Well, we wouldn't know because we're a couple of farmers,
right?
And we don't understand these things.
Yeah, I know. All we do is dig a hole and put a seed in it
and
cover it up.
water it and watch it grow.
But whenever he talks about marijuana, obesity, gun control, climate change, the whole thing, he cherry picks a study that stokes his authoritarian instincts. There's a problem, I've got a government solution, and it involves taking away your freedom of choice.
And when he says that, Bernie's antenna goes up.
Yeah.
That's what he likes about Bloomberg, that authoritarian streak.
Right. And Bernie was another thing when he kept doubling down about his belief that the Cuban Revolution did good things, And, of course, everybody jumped on him for the fact that Castro was a dictator and he murdered people and put them in prison, and all that is true. And Bernie just says, hey, I understand that, but it's the truth. He did good things. It's the truth. But it's not.
Yeah, he's very flamboyant with his arms, isn't he?
Yes.
There's lots of animation. Almost that Italian thing is
right.
So it's very forceful, and yeah, he's something else, and frightening, really.
Yeah.
I think it was Limbaugh that asked the question yesterday. What's more frightening? He started the show with this question: what's more frightening, the coronavirus or
Bernie Sanders? Yeah. Well, the thing is that people don't realize, and more people should be speaking up about it, but Cuba was actually a wealthy country.
Absolutely.
When Castro had his revolution.
Had an 80% literacy rate or numbers to that effect, and quite an engaging free market there. And,
yeah.
It was...
and it was tolerant. And it wasn't racist because Bautista, the dictator, or the president, he was corrupt. I remember the story about how he skimmed the parking meters. And collected a lot of the money from the parking meters for himself. But
who did?
Bautista.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear that one.
All right. Well,
that's funny. We'll have to let our sponsors identify themselves, and then we'll be right back.
Rich is just a really, really good guy. The term good egg.
This overload.
Shannon Lawson here. Join us for the Nevada Radio Roundup, Fridays at 2 p.m. A good news variety show all about the local scene. The Nevada Roundup, Friday at 2.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Traynor. My co-host, Leland Faegre, and we're talking about Bernie's rosy picture of communism in Cuba. And the thing is that, I'm going to quote the arch enemy of the Democratic Party, Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. If you saw him, his interview with Oliver Stone, a 4-hour interview, which I recommend to anybody to watch, he came out and said that the reason why he was a KGB agent in Germany, but what he saw in East Germany was that communism just causes stagnation. Things do not improve because there's no capital stock, there's no savings and investment that goes on like that. So, and that's what you have in Cuba today. It's not true that the Cuba has a great healthcare system. They do train doctors and send them all over the world for propaganda purposes. Some of them at least defect while they're over there. But in Cuba, the poor people have to bring their own blankets. They have to bring even their own medicine when they go to a hospital. This high quality health care is reserved for elites. Elites, exactly. Media people from America and socialist dictators that are on their way out. They need a good hospital. So that's what Cuba is like. The other countries were comparable to Cuba when the Cuban Revolution occurred, and now they've improved greatly over Cuba because of the fact that communism just causes economic stagnation, and it doesn't improve the quality of life over time. So Costa Rica, El Salvador, Peru, all of these countries have literacy rates comparable to Cuba, and they all have health care as well. So we have to keep that in mind, and somebody has to call Bernie out on that, because it's not just that Castro...
And they didn't.
No.
He puts on his bulletproof vest in these things, and nobody goes after him.
Yeah, because they don't like capitalism,
yeah,
and they don't want to say that capitalism can improve your life better than communism.
And they're too much like him.
Yeah, exactly.
Every one of them up there. I mean, everyone in Latin America should have taken their cue and figured out how they were going to get out of there when Ricky Ricardo left. That was their cue.
Yeah. All right, so... and then a couple of the things that happened was CIA Pete went on a rant about how Russians were murdering the poor innocent people of Idlib. And, it's the greatest humanitarian crisis, I think he called it.
I think the only people left there are our former CIA pals, aren't there?
Yeah.
In the area? Yeah,
well, no, I mean, it's full of Turks and jihadis, and then that's who Russia is attacking. But the moderator claims, again, always, Russia's attacking schools, they're bombing hospitals, and all this other stuff, which, is just not true, or it's completely out of context. So,
well, they need that narrative in order to sell, Russia.
Russia, of
and,
course.
And now they've gone back to Russia. So now it's Russia.
And, yeah, even though, that... briefing that was given is shown to have been, greatly exaggerated as to any danger that Russia is colluding in or interfering in the election. I mean, all countries...
Whose election?
Our election.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All countries, do some kind of spying during elections.
We have been going after countries' elections for 50 years.
Right.
Probably since the inception of the agency.
Right, and the politicians refuse to believe that. I mean,
well, they don't hear it because the media, of course, is filled with CIA types.
Right,
and they don't want that narrative out there. So the American people have no idea that we actually do the same thing.
Speaking of the media and CIA, I came across an article by guess who? Bernstein, of who's the Watergate reporter back in the 70s. He gave a very detailed, expose of how the CIA has actually infiltrated all the major news stations.
He's an agent.
Yeah, he probably is
He's
too.
An agent. Yeah.
Now he is, but
and now he's right next to Brennan and Clapper there at CNN.
Yeah, but at that time, it was written in 1977 after the Church Committee and all that. So at that time, it looked like an honest expose, and they get the journalists to become assets for them, to recruit people that they meet in foreign countries, and so on and so forth. So, we just don't have an objective media, and that's was plainly on display. And you're right. They, when somebody, Rand Paul said that America has interfered in 85 different elections in the last few decades, and when Senator Jeff Flake was told that, he said, well, that was only to ensure democracy that we would interfere,
Somebody has to do it.
Right. Or Woolsey said on TV when Laura Ingraham asked him if we ever interfere in elections, he said, well, it's only for their good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Part of the discourse on any given cable channel or news source, for me, is to try to single out which of these people are actually agents of the Central Intelligence Agency.
Right.
It's a process. I always do it. Mm-hmm. I analyze what they're saying. Are they deliberately trying to dissuade a particular argument? Are they going in a particular area to help sell it for the sake of the military-industrial complex? I mean, these are the things that go through my mind whenever I see somebody with a microphone.
Yes.
You don't have to worry about that here on Talking Truth to Power, ladies
and some of it is blatant, some of it is blatant. I mean, some of these people are
we know
CIA on their resume.
Anderson Cooper,
right,
for
exactly.
example. I mean, everybody knows
Wolf
that.
Blitzer,
yeah. These are all agents, yeah.
Well, anyway, so we can't trust the media, and we certainly can't trust the politicians. So
you have to trust us.
Yes, call us, and we'll give you the truth here.
Exactly.
So those are the main things. I also found it in the first debate. I thought it was kind of cute or cool the way Klobuchar and Buttigieg got into it for a few minutes there.
In the previous debate?
Yeah, the Nevada debate. Mm-hmm. It was like Buttigieg was telling Amy that
she was boring.
Yeah, no, he reacted to her like a gay man would react to an uppity woman that's trying to crowd his space. Yeah. Trying to cut into his lane.
Perfectly normal.
Right. Exactly.
That was my take on it.
And when he did that, she came back to him like a sanctimonious pretend woman, trying to shame her and call her stupid. It was because these people claim that they all get along with each other and everything, and it was just tearing back the curtain just a bit to see how they really think.
And it was very revealing. I mean, there is no space in that middle lane,
right?
In that moderate lane. Mm-hmm. That's why I still say it's Hillary. When we get closer to Milwaukee, we're going to see. There was an article published on Lou Rockwell this week to that effect. Some other columnist had the same position, that Bloomberg is just keeping the throne warm for her until it can all work itself out, because the Democrat establishment just can't possibly see Bernie as the nominee of the party.
Right.
They know it's suicide. Literally suicide for the party. But you see,
somebody said if he comes in with a polarity and they deny him the nomination,
they'll run.
And one of the hosts said today, "Let him run."
Yeah.
Where are they going to go?
Right.
Let him run.
Right. Exactly. So you see, they're just chewing on each other, and it's an amazing thing to watch.
Yes.
Truly extraordinary.
All right. So we have a couple of minutes left. I wanted to talk a little bit about all this climate change propaganda we're seeing recently.
There's no such thing except climate change propaganda.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk and TV video spilt on the idea that Antarctica is rapidly warming. And that's not true. There is a peninsula, and I forget the name of it, but there's a peninsula of the Antarctic continent that sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean, and that's the only place that is warming. It's it's controlled by ocean winds and all kinds of factors, but the ice in continental Antarctica has been still growing. There's no measurement for Greenland ice lost. One of the things I also want to talk about is that they came out and said that CO2 emissions have been stable for the last couple of years. Now, this sounds like good news if you believe in carbon emissions and global warming.
Is a problem for the environment, yeah.
Right. But it's actually what it's really telling you is that they're keeping economic development down, especially in places that really need it, like Africa. And where the Western nations are imposing energy austerity on Africa. People talk about China and everything, but China at least is industrializing, and once it reaches a certain level of industrialization, then it can be expected from previous experience that the pollution levels will start to come down.
It'll also be revealed, I think, at that point that it could be Africa's turn to develop.
Right.
Because they can't have the entire planet developing at the same time.
Much of Africa still cooks and heats their homes with wood, which is the most pollutant and carbon-emitting.
If you're concerned about that.
Substance. Yeah. And also slash and burn agriculture. That's another factor. But the Western countries will not allow them to build coal-fired energy plants because it's against global warming. They insist they have to have solar power and other renewables.
It helps sell that narrative.
Yeah.
That's what they're just exploiting Africa once again.
Yes, I know.
It's just embarrassing and really unfair.
Except for Russia, because Putin. We'll tell you why.
Putin.
Destination Midtown. Experience the difference. Reno's premier shopping extravaganza.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ,
a Lotus broadcast station.
the power of radio since 1967.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Traynor, and my co-host, Leland Faegre.
You know, before we put a wrap on the Nevada debate, did Klobuchar ever come up with the president of Mexico's name? Did she ever?
I don't know if she did at the debate. Maybe it was after the debate somebody told her, and she came up with it. Yeah. But that is, I mean, Buttigieg was right. That is pretty slovenly not to know when you're on the committee that deals with it, not to know the president's name of Mexico.
Absolutely.
But anyway, to get back to the thread about global warming in Russia.
Obrador.
Obrador.
For the sake of our listening audience,
Right. People don't realize that Russia has become almost, except for France, almost the only nuclear energy exporting country in the world. And although most American, most of those on the left don't want nuclear energy in America, it is carbon-free. And so Russia is building nuclear plants in at least 19 countries in the third world. And that will do an awful lot for global warming. It'll do a lot more for sustainable, steady electricity than anything than solar power will. And Russia is very advanced. They have a floating nuclear power plant that they can tow around.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So if you know, Hurricane Maria that struck Puerto Rico and power was out and people were trying to bring generators to their families from America to Cuba, but they weren't. The FAA wouldn't allow them to fly with them.
On-time delivery.
But if we could have towed a nuclear power plant to Puerto Rico, I mean, that would have been done a lot of good for that situation.
It sure would have.
Yeah. And also, you know, the hypersonic missiles that Russia has employed little nuclear engines that give them their hypersonic speed. America hasn't figured out how to do that yet.
Or they're not letting on, one of the two. Yeah. We don't hear anything about it.
So, you know, so much for Vladimir, except, you know, the news media and the politicians are just so completely wrong about world events. I mean, the first debate didn't have any foreign policy.
No discussion at all.
Yeah. And the second debate had a lot of foreign policy, but it was awful.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
So, who knows?
They'll destroy it either way.
Yep.
But we want our listening audience to understand we're kind of behind rootin' tootin' Putin.
Yeah.
We kind of like him in a variety of ways. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's a nationalist, and he's not going around making speeches about conquering other peoples.
He doesn't like this unipolar nonsense.
He wants a multipolar world.
Yep.
He wants countries to have their sovereignty under the international law and not under the so-called rules that America lays out and others have to follow or suffer sanctions.
I think in Trump's second term is when we're going to have some real progress between the two countries.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Others think we won't get anywhere until Putin goes and his successor comes in, but who knows what his successor will be like.
No, I think Trump is determined to see that come about in his administration.
Yeah.
Never mind, you know, the net effect, you know, the propaganda effect, the Democrat ferocity of anti-Russian nonsense, you know, all of that stuff. He doesn't care. Trump doesn't care about that.
Right.
He delights in it. I know I do.
Yeah, he divides the nation with it.
Yeah, right.
That's what he loves to do. He loves to sit in his bathrobe and tweet to divide the nation.
That's right. He wakes up in the morning to divide us.
Which the Russians are doing, too. They're sowing disinformation.
Yeah.
And they're trying to divide the country and to attack our democratic institutions. And values, yes.
Even though they have a stock market.
Yeah.
They have elections.
Yeah, they do. Certified elections. Yeah. We actually helped write their constitution, which Putin is liberalizing right now as we speak to take some of his own power in the presidency away. I guess he feels that Russia's come a long way since Yeltsin, and he wants to pave the way for his successors to have less authority, but also for the parliament, the Duma, and the courts to have more authority. But we don't want to talk about that because, Putin, Russia.
Rootin' tootin' Putin.
Yes. So what's going on in England with Julian Assange?
Exactly. Great segue. That is a good question. What have you heard?
Well, I've heard that the Assange has complained that he's not able to talk to his lawyers, and
that's been the case for some time, right? But
yeah.
I'm sure that with the proceedings yesterday, I'm sure he was at least there was some pro forma capability of discussing the case with legal transport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that he's speaking now to the magistrate. This is from previous, but it was a tweet from somebody that was there. But he has no privacy, he cannot participate, and the judge ordered him to cease speaking. It's not allowed for a defendant to speak. Yeah, okay. Well, there's some technical issues going on about the English law and whether they can extradite him or not, but I think it's going to have to go to appeals. Mm-hmm. This judge appears to be about the same type of judge that presided over the Manafort and Stone trial. It appears to be, it doesn't look like he's going to, this judge is going to...
I'm sure he's there for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure they didn't pick him out of a fair lottery.
Did you hear Hannity's program yesterday? Did you catch any of that?
I don't think so. No,
he interviewed Assange.
Oh, he did? Oh, yeah, quite a while ago.
Yeah, a year and a half ago or so. And he was quite prolific in his discussion of that particular interview on yesterday's program.
Okay.
He spent, I'd say, at least an hour on the subject matter because he clearly senses that Assange is not getting a fair trial there.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
Yes, absolutely. So for more on that interview, I think he's posted it on his site, and it's if you haven't seen it, it's very important to listen to because it contradicts the narrative in the United States about who Julian Assange is.
Right.
In fact, he's just a journalist.
Yes. Yeah. They're trying to say that he told Chelsea Manning or facilitated Chelsea Manning hacking, but basically he just encouraged him.
Who said, is that against the law?
No.
No.
It's not. No, neither did he commit rape, or neither did he do any of these things that he's been in prison for, a decade for.
So should he be imprisoned, I'm sure he's going to be pardoned. And that's what I see coming out of this, because he wouldn't be... Hannity effectively is Trump's media spokesman. Mm-hmm. I mean, he doesn't have that official emblem, but that's what he is to Trump. So if he's talking about it, it's because Trump's concerned about that. I mean, there's a reason why he went to Alex Jones as a candidate, because he's comfortable in our circles, in our libertarian circles. He's not afraid of it at all. And he wants us... to understand that he's taking these issues for the sake of the future of this country. The libertarian streak.
All right. In the next section, do you want to call security and talk about the Weinstein?
Oh, all right.
And all of that?
Are we getting into that again?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But we can only wish Assange the best. I did hear some encouraging news that he's a little bit healthier. he's feeling a little bit better.
Well,
but
that's good.
Yeah.
Because I did hear something about him being forced to strip naked, and he was searched, and I don't know what all I read about it. It's sickening to even think about that guy being behind bars, isn't it? It's just sickening. So if that's the case, that's another aggression that he should take out in his once he's free.
Yes.
Once he's capable of going after his enemies, and we will support him.
Yes. You have, Julian, just remember, you have a friend.
You're on Talking Truth to Power.
Yes.
Yeah. So, where are you going with that? Is that...
Well, this is the book called The Wolf of Wall Street that was made into a movie.
Oh, okay.
And in the next segment, we're going to discuss the Weinstein...
The Wolf of Wall Street?
No, well, briefly, but we're going to discuss something, how Weinstein's conviction and whether or not, if Hollywood ever makes a movie about Weinstein and the Me Too movement... Will
the character be a
Jewish character? I wouldn't bet on it.
You mean it might cast an awful pall on the subject matter by selecting a Jew to represent Weinstein?
Right, exactly.
So what would it be? Smith?
Yeah, any kind of Gentile will
Jones?
do. Any kind of Gentile will do.
Well, I don't know. I can't imagine them doing that, frankly. But
well, all you have to do is look at The Wolf of Wall Street and how they made it into a movie, and every single movie about financial shenanigans.
Well, they do go out of
the
their
80s.
They do go out of their way to cover up their tracks. There's no question about that.
Okay.
So that could be the end result. But boy, what a boring movie if that's what it goes about doing, right?
Right.
My God.
The Butcher's Kitchen Barbecue invites your family in for the best wood-fire, slow-cooked barbecue rotisserie and open char.
Getting to know you.
Let me tell you about America Matters with Eddie Floyd. It comes on every Monday at noon. Don't want you to miss it. That's America Matters with Eddie Floyd.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
Hello, welcome back to Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Traynor, and we are here with Leland Faegre, and we were beginning to talk about the Harvey Weinstein conviction. And don't get me wrong, I'm happy that he seems like a real creepy perv, and I'm happy he's found guilty on the two charges of rape and forcible, I guess what they call it, unwanted forcible touching or something. But the thing that I'm also glad that he was not convicted for unproven allegations by the that he is under the predatory crime statutes. I mean...
Well, that's just the civil libertarian in you.
Yeah, I mean, we watch Law and Order on TV all the time, and the judges are always throwing out past behavior. And now all of a sudden, we're going to carve out a big exception about past behavior for the Me Too people? Doesn't sound right to me.
No, it doesn't. There's so much about this, though. I mean, that guy's been... So what is that Eagles track that discusses this very subject matter? Do you know that one? It goes back to...
no.
Hotel California, I think. But it's basically Harvey Weinstein's theme song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it talks entirely, but we should have actually brought it into the show so that we could have included it in the segment. But yeah, I mean, this has been going on in Hollywood for years and years and years and years.
Yeah. But the liberal Jewish newspaper Haaretz in Israel listed some of the prominent Jewish men accused of predatory sexual behavior. In addition to Harvey Weinstein, the list of Jewish men implicated by Me Too over the last year includes Al Franken, ousted CBS chief Les Moonves, actor Dustin Hoffman, Jeffrey Tambor, and Jeremy Piven, directors Woody Allen, James Toback, and Brett Ratner, playwright Israel Horowitz, journalists Mark Halpern and Michael Oreskes.
Hold on just a minute. I want to ask our audience, are you noticing a theme in here?
Yeah. Conductor James Levine, radio show host Lawrence Lopat and Jonathan Swartz, and don't forget Matt Lauer and Charlie Rose, Epstein, of course Richard Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. The number of Jewish people implicated as sexual predators has been boggling. But nobody, of course, identifies them by their ethnicity.
No.
In
fact, I never thought of Matt Lauer being Jewish.
Yeah, he's Jewish. Mm-hmm. And there are also news reports about many Orthodox Jews seek refuge in Israel when they're facing molestation charges, child molestation. And Israel has long been accused of being a real sex trafficking hotspot. Because the reason is, of course, is that you are never prosecuted for crimes against Gentiles in Israel.
Because we're just slaves.
Yeah.
Under Talmudic law.
Yeah, right. Well, we're talking animals.
Yeah.
We're talking beasts.
Yeah, right.
Right. So I was thinking, if what if they made a movie about Me Too in 10 years? Would any of the characters be Jewish?
10 years?
In 10 years? Well, it takes a while for Hollywood to make a big-budget movie,
You think?
Yeah, so...
They might rush this one to the front.
Well, there might be some made-for-TV movies.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah.
But would they mention that all these people are Jewish?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think all we have to do is look at the what happened to the financial crimes starting in the 1980s. And I'm going to rip off names of some movies. I know my co-host here, Leland, doesn't watch a lot of movies.
I probably haven't seen them.
All right.
I hope I've heard of them. That's all I want.
Well, the first one was Wall Street.
Oh, yeah.
And that starred Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen. Now, those are two Jewish guys, although Douglas might be partly Jewish. Then The Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo DiCaprio was the star of that one. A nice Jewish guy, with an Italian name.
Mm-hmm.
Other People's Money starred Gregory Peck and Danny DeVito. Arbitrage, another financial scandal movie, starred Richard Gere and Susan Sarandon. Margin Call starred Kevin Spacey and the British Jeremy Irons. Nothing Gentile about that. The Big Short was Brad Pitt, Ryan Gosling, and Christian Bale were the stars in that one. And Money Monster was George Clooney, Julia Roberts. So throughout all the financial crashes and excesses that these films illustrate for American people, the actual perpetrators were nearly all Jewish. The real names were Ivan Boesky, Michael Milken, Greenspan, the head of the Fed, Rubin, the Secretary of the Treasury, Larry Summers, Lehman Brothers, Jordan Belfort, Goldman Sachs. All of these Jewish names were completely whitewashed and replaced by Gentile names.
But this crash, this 2-day episode we're experiencing right now, was caused by a virus.
Okay. All right. So I guess
I just want to cool off the...
Yeah, there are very few Jews in China, so I guess we have to give that one a pass.
And by the way, the averages it looks like they've bottomed here, where the Dow is down 137, the S&P down just 10. So it looks like they may have found some foundation here.
All right. That's good to know. Mm-hmm. But, even the plays and books that these Hollywood movies were based on were written by Jews, about Jews, with plenty of Jewish ethnicity. And Hollywood simply converted them into Gentile dramas without a hint of a Jewish name or accent. Mm-hmm. Like I was saying, The Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. His book is all about a Jewish manipulator, a macher, I think they call it, a wheeler and dealer on Wall Street, who was obsessed with drugs and shishkas, Gentile women. He was, but there's no mention of that. It's all Gentiles going after Gentiles. And, they're the ones that are fleecing America, but never the Judaic peoples. And so
they look after their own.
Yes. And
they're God's chosen people.
Yes, they are. That's the thing, and we're not.
Yeah.
But, you can read Portney's Complaint by Philip Roth. You can watch any one of a number of Woody Allen films and get an idea of how obsessed Jewish males are with shishka lust. But, you'll never see that in Hollywood, although I think the Adam Sandler movie is worth watching. I think it's called Uncut Gems, about the Jewish diamond business, because Sandler has a Jewish wife in Queens, but he has a shishka mistress in New York City, in Manhattan. So I think that's why I said I think Sandler is an independent thinker. I don't think he follows the line there. Did they
do a film on Bernie Madoff?
Not that I'm aware of. No, that's another one, though, Bernie Madoff. I know,
you left him conveniently out. I think,
but I didn't, not conveniently. I just ran out of time.
Because I think that was an egregious episode of licentiousness. I just found that one, because he had, he worked for the government and understood Ponzi schemes. And so he just implemented it in the private sector, taking advantage of...
That's another thing. Like, how many government programs or in fact, the Federal Reserve and the income tax, we could go into the history of that.
We could do that very shortly with the date coming up, April 15th. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, we planned on exploring that. And
I don't know how we got through the last time we discussed that.
But, they are covering up for themselves. But worse than that, if you say, the Jews run Hollywood, but so what? The so what is that they're completely covering up the exploitative crimes of their own people. And, the Hollywood dream machine never presents Jews in a bad light. It's always about the Holocaust. It's always about the courageous Jews and the Shabbos Goy Gentiles who helped them. The heroes are either Jewish or friends of the Jews, and the humor is very often Jewish, and we don't, the bankruptcies, repossessions, evictions, loss of retirement funds, all of these things that follow these financial panics that were caused by Jewish actors.
Never any Westerns.
No, I don't think I may have seen one or two Westerns that featured Jewish people, but I don't think so.
And no films about farming.
No. Or telling women to kill it, or anything like that. So where did all this money go? Who is responsible? Because Hollywood, is the dream machine. It's the cultural fabric of our society.
Yeah, kind of a source. Really.
Yeah. It's
almost like a library in a way.
Yeah, sure. When people talk about real events, they often illustrate it
by film,
with Hollywood films.
Descriptions of films. Yeah.
Yes. And Hollywood is just make sure that the American people will never know the ethnicity behind most of these white-collar crimes.
And if that's accomplished, then that's the purpose.
Right.
That's their intent.
But, the American, in the 50s, I think surveys showed that at least half of Americans understood that Hollywood was run by Jews. And then we had, of course, poor Mel Gibson.
Yeah. They had to sacrifice him, didn't they?
Yeah.
They had to sacrifice somebody.
Yeah. He was, caught drunk driving, and when he was arrested, he went on a rant about how the Jews run Hollywood. But he had a terrible time trying to get his movie about the Passion of the Christ, made. And the Rockford Files, James Garner, he was...
I actually did see that.
Yes.
I used to be a fan of that thing.
He had to spend 8 years suing his Jewish producer to try and get the money, the royalties that he was due for that movie.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week, and security, you can stand down.
Well, if we get to the coronavirus next week, I'd like to sort of incorporate a discussion of the globalist nature and why we're vulnerable to this, because that supply chain, that's going to be a big part of this entire story. And you know what stock has been affected the most so far? Stock market?
No, I don't know what stocks it affected the most.
Apple.
Oh yeah, Apple. Oh yeah. I'm sorry, you caught me at a bad moment.
Because their main operation there is.
Oh yeah, they're very heavily invested in China.